don't know why it always does that. Lag. Right, so I wanted to do some more update because I wanted to talk about stuff which happened previously with this motherboard, right, and with this computer build, which I shrugged off. I just thought, maybe it was just bad connection, you know, sort of thing. So I'm going to tell you what happened initially when I was building it. Certain signs which I probably should have paid more attention to. So initially when I was building the computer, the new computer with the motherboard, which came all well packaged and everything, and put the CPU in it, everything, did everything right. I was paying very close attention to making sure I was grounded and everything, so there was no static or anything. But I remembered something happened when I was putting the power supply in, after I put the power supply in. So to give you a little back history on it, when I originally built my main computer, which was about 14 years ago, what, 13 14 years ago, at the time I had a 550 watt Corsair power supply, and there was an article I was reading on the internet that said that the 550 watt power supply was not adequate to run the M5A78L-M with a 750 Ti graphics card. You needed something bigger than that. So that's when I got, also the sockets were, the socket pinouts are different. Let me just go and grab that from the power supply and I'll show you how they go. So originally when I was building this machine, this was the 520 watt power supply, right? Now when you look at, this is modular, so you can unplug the modules from the back. You can just pull them out, which is very nice. I love this power supply, I think it was neat, but it's a shame that I couldn't use this on the new build. And there's a reason why. Apart from it being low power, it's 520 watt, and it's the sockets for the, now there's the normal power supply for the motherboard, right, which is 4 pin. That's fine, that you can use that on that M5A78L-M motherboard. But instead of a 6 pin for the graphics card, it has an 8 pin. So straight away I knew that we couldn't use this power supply because it's an 8 pin. I suppose I could have cut those other pins off because it's only 12 volt anyway, and it is possible you could cut those extra pins off to use it, but I didn't want to do all that crap because it's kind of a botched job, and there's a reason why these are not made for the bigger graphics cards. It's simply because the graphics card does need more power, right? And then there's the multi-pin for the motherboard, and I don't believe this is compatible actually. Let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. So it's 24 pin for the motherboard, and I don't think that would fit in it. So I was thinking about, I could use this power supply to check without the onboard graphics. I have to remove the onboard graphics. No, the removable graphics card. I'd have to remove the and use the onboard graphics to be able to use this power supply to do a test. And if these pinouts are correct for the motherboard, then I could determine if the power supply that's in there is faulty, and I'll explain why in a minute. Because when I was initially building it, my screwdriver I was using the screwdriver to put it in, and the screwdriver accidentally, that's why I did in the last video, the last live stream, I was showing you something which I didn't explain because I cut the video off, but I actually tapped the power supply with this in the new build, and when I went to power it on, it wouldn't power on. This was weeks ago, and I thought, maybe there's a loose wire or something. So I unplugged a few things, plugged them back in again, and give it a little tap and all that, you know what you do to see if there's anything loose or anything. And anyway, it powered up then, it booted. It was working fine. I thought, oh, that's strange. And I shrugged it off, I thought, well, it must have been a glitch. But everything was working fine. After I cloned that operating system and I put it all on there, and everything was working great. I run second line. But then it died on me a few days ago. And I got to thinking, I thought, hang on a minute. What about that time when it wouldn't boot up? You know, after I tapped it, and I'm thinking whether there is a problem with the power supply. It possibly is, but has it too late? Is it already done damage has it damaged the motherboard now, or has it damaged the CPU even? I just don't like thinking about it, to be honest, because it means I've got to spend another 60 quid out, because there's a CPU cost me about 30 quid, and the motherboard was second hand, obviously cost me about 34 quid. So you're talking another 64 quid, basically. So I've been sat there thinking about the time when I tapped the power supply and it didn't want to boot up, and then so it might be that there's an issue with the power supply, but the vibration could be translated to something on the motherboard even. So it doesn't have to be the power supply, it could be the motherboard itself that's got a problem somewhere, like a bad connection, a dry joint. But I don't think that's going to matter anymore, because from what I heard when it failed, it sounded mortal, as in major. It sounded like something popped somewhere. And I've tried powering it up again today, nothing, just saying it's dead. I tried tapping on it like I did last time with the power supply, and powered it on, nothing, still dead. So whatever's happened, it seems like it's permanent. So anyway, it's kind of heartbreaking when you spend a lot of time and you have to save every penny, and you skip on eating food as well, you know, living on sandwiches and bread and jam sandwiches basically was what I'm doing right now. So when you get to a state where you feel like you just can't stretch it anymore, you know, you're trying to stretch your pennies out and just can't stretch it anymore. I mean, as it is, I've got about half a week to go before next week, next payday, whatever. So I mean, it's a mystery. I mean, computers are complicated devices. We're not talking about a freaking 13 amp plug. We're talking about something that's got multiple surface mount components on it. And I don't have the equipment to repair motherboards, so that's out. You know, it's just not an option for me, right? But there is one possibility. If his other power supply will run the motherboard, I could technically at least see if it'll power up the motherboard. This will have power supply, because I can't. There's the leads on this are not SATA leads. They're the old Molex ones, right? So I can't use these to power up the hard drive or any of that stuff. There is an adapter in there which I could use, which will, yeah, it will power up the hard drives. There's only two in there, but this was designed for the older motherboards. But it might, if that's compatible, I'll have to find out if that's got enough pins on it. So I can't remember now. I've got to dig out the freaking manual. Let me just check something. I've actually got the manual on my desktop right now. Oh, it'll be in here. Right, just a minute. Let me switch over. Let me switch over to window capture. PDF. Right. Let's have a look at this. I've still got my audio on. I hope so. Let me just, oh god, let me just check this a minute. Sometimes it cuts my audio off when I switch over to desktop capture, you know? I hope so. Just make sure you can still hear me. Yeah, it's still working, right, good. Okay, right, so let's go and have a look at this manual in a minute. To make that a bit smaller. Right, so Molex, I think we search power. Oh, in the wrong. I want to scroll right up. In the wrong area. I'm zoomed right into. Let's try. Motherboard. We want internal connectors, right? Let's zoom in a minute. I'm interested in this pin out here. So what's that? How many pins is that? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So that's a 24 pin. That socket. What did I say this other one was? The actual one, this is the power supply. Let's see. It's 24 pin. So that this 550 watt power supply should be enough to test the motherboard, at least to determine if the other power supply is faulty. Because you're going to say, well, why just check it out with your meter? Well, there's a problem. I don't know I've got no diagram for the output pins on this Molex for the motherboard. I've got no pinouts information for what voltage is supposed to be on what pins on there. There'll be minus volts, there'll be plus volts. It doesn't tell me on here. I've got no freaking diagram for the motherboard. So it's this, if it's the right Molex, not Molex, if it's the right onboard, if this power socket fits, then it'll be right, won't it? And let's face it, at the moment it's dead, so I've got nothing to lose. So we can see that how do I zoom out? Oh, I'm pressing the wrong button. Right, so we can see that this will actually power the motherboard, this power supply. So at least I can plug this one in just to find out if the power supply that's on there is definitely a fault. And if it works, then I know all I have to do is buy a new power supply that's got the right graphics card supplementary power lead on it, because this one doesn't. It has an 8-pin, not a 6, and I need a 6-pin for the graphics card. That's the only difference. That's the LPT, that's the printer port, by the way, so it don't tell me anything. Let me see if it has any information. Oh yes, there we go. We actually have the extension, the power pinouts, plus 3 volts, plus 12 volts, plus 12 volts, plus 5 volts standby, power OK. So there's an error check pin on there as well, power OK. So ground, plus 5 volts. Cool. Right, I didn't realise we'd get that on there. So that's brilliant. We've actually got the voltages there. So that's great. Now, I'll tell you what I was suspicious of. I'll tell you what I was thinking about, because I've been doing a lot of thinking about this, about why it's refusing to boot. If the power for the CPU is not present, it won't do anything. So I was thinking the ATX 12 volt, that's supposed to have 12 volt DC on it to 2 pins, right? If one of those voltages is missing, then the CPU is not going to get any power to do anything. Whereas the motherboard itself was getting power over here on the, oh, hang on a minute. Is my mouse hidden? Oh, you can see my mouse, good. Right. Wasn't sure if my mouse was being captured or not. So you can see what I mean from there. Oh, just a minute, I've realised something. Yeah, you're going to get a delay. I should have switched the audio direct. Just a minute. Right. I've switched over to my other microphone because I was using the audio from my phone. And there's a delay on the audio from the phone. So I should have caught up now. I'll probably chop the end of that delay off anyway. But so you can see from this diagram. So I'm suspicious that one of the power lines might have failed, and we don't know which one. I had a thought that maybe the minus 5 volts, because we need, or the minus 12 volts. If you get an imbalance in the power supply, and if one of them fails, it throws the whole system into chaos. So down here we've got the minus 12 volts, right, which is the lowest rated wattage power output. I think it's 500 milliamps on the minus 12 volts, and that's the weakest link. Minus 12 volts is the weakest link because they're usually very underpowered, usually about half an amp. If something somewhere is using the minus 12 volts, or even the minus 5 volts, I think it's minus 5 volts, I mean it should be. Usually you have what do you call it? Yeah, there's the minus 5 volts up here. So those two things are the weakest links, the minus 5 volts and the minus 12 volts. I need to check those. And now I can see the layout. It means that I'm going to be able to check those to make sure that those are present. Because if they're not, that'll explain everything. Because if you get one of them voltages missing, it won't do a damn thing. But, or there could be a short on the line. There could be a short circuit on the motherboard itself, on one of the minus volts even. The other ones usually a higher amperage, and if they're shorted out, there'll be sparks. Trust me, there'll be freaking fireworks. So if one of the plus volts, plus 12 volts, plus 3 volts, those are higher amperage. If one of those had gone short circuit, there would have been fireworks. You know, would have seen sparks. But the minus 5 volts, minus 12 volts, they're very low current, but they are very weak. You know, weak link, very fragile. But you need that to create a center voltage. You know, you need to create. You need to have your voltage in between. What do you call it? Dual line. Plus or minus. You need to have a balanced power supply line. If it's not balanced, it will just swing over to one side and lock up, which is what we're seeing. It's kind of what we're seeing, where it's not responding. So that's the next step. That's what I've got to check, but I'm not going to do it right now because I'm just going to tell you what I'm thinking. So if you have a similar problem, it's worth checking these things out, because I'm going to check them out anyway, because if I check these out and I find a missing voltage somewhere, it might give me hope, you know. I don't power it on anymore until I've done some voltage checks, but it's when I last powered it on was this morning, and it all lit up again, and the front came on. But remember when I did the previous live stream, I'll try and link to it at some point in the description of this video so you can go back and look at that one. But when I was trying to start it up, and I don't think I caught it on camera, but I pressed the power button and it wouldn't even come on at all. There was no light on the separate module display. That didn't even come on, which is why I'm thinking power supply has got a problem, because it didn't do it, wouldn't come on. But then after waiting a while and trying again, it did come on. So something's definitely not right here to do with the power supply. Anyway, I think that's it for now. As I say, I've got some options. I have options. I can try this other power supply just on the motherboard itself, without the other graphics card fitted. That'll at least eliminate both the graphics card as being a culprit, and it will eliminate the power supply itself that's fitted in the unit as being a possible cause. But it doesn't explain why it failed in the first place, because this particular power supply, when I originally got it for my main computer, my other computer, which I still use right now, I only used it for about, what, 3 or 4 months, or is it 6 months? And why did I pull it out and replace it? I'll tell you why. After about 6 months, I heard a loud rattling sound. The freaking fan in the power supply was catching, but I didn't know what was catching. It was making a hell of a racket. And it was a cheap brand anyway. It was a really cheap brand. It was, what do you call it, Ace. It was called ACE, Ace. I was never very happy about it because it was very I knew it was a cheap brand. It wasn't expensive. It was dirt cheap to buy it. And I was frustrated and I was angry and I was fed up with all these freaking problems even back then. This is 14 years ago, 13 years ago, whatever. I decided, oh sod it, I'm just going to order a new power supply, right? So that's when I ordered a new, I ordered the Corsair 950 watt, I think it was 950 watt, or was it 850 watt, or no? I can't remember now. I'd have to pull it out and have a look because I've forgotten. But I ordered a new power supply because at the time I had a bit of extra money on me, so I ordered a decent power supply for it. And when it arrived, I put it in and I blew the freaking ups, my ups, because the surge, the actual higher capacitors, the bigger capacitors in the new power supply which I just bought, was so beefy, it overloaded the surge current on my uninterruptible power supply. My ups power bank backup. I blew the friggin' MOSFETs on it. But anyway, so what I did, that's when I actually decided to buy another ups, and I bought the Cyber Power. So now I have two ups. I repaired my MGE ups. I replaced the MOSFETs in that and fixed it all up, and I decided to never use that on my big computer ever again because it was too beefy. It wasn't beefy enough to, rather to run the big 950 watt power supply. I use it on the smaller stuff like the peripherals, like my monitor and other stuff. I use the Cyber Power to run my main computer now. So anyway, that's the reason I replaced that Ace power supply, is because the fan had failed on it. It was rattling like crazy. Anyway, I've since fixed that. Took it apart, took the fan out, and I found that the bearings had slipped. The actual motor assembly had popped out of the little slot where it holds it in place, and the fan had dropped down about 1/2 centimetre, causing the fan to bash against the grill. Anyway, after I fixed that, pushed it all back, snapped it all back in place, it was fine. And it sat for, like, what was it? I don't know, 8 to 10 years or something. It sat in a cupboard, doing nothing. And I didn't think there was anything wrong with it, because it was working fine before. It was just the fan that was giving me trouble, right? So. And when I was building this new computer, I thought, well, since I fixed the fan on it, I can use it. I used that power supply, right? There was no reason to assume there was a problem with it. It had been sat there, it hadn't been used for a long time, but I didn't think there would be a problem with it. But anyway, like, you can put these things down and forget about them for years, and you come to get them out of the cupboard and plug them in, and you get capacitors degrade over time even when they're not in use. Capacitors can go unformed, deformed in their electrolyte structure. So that might be what happened, I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna go. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again, maybe. Bye for now.